In the coming week, we are going to be delving further into the concepts of the normality bias and Maslow's hierarchy and how those concepts play into psychological operations. But before doing that, I think it would be a good idea to maybe do a 201 version of cognitive dissonance, because it's going to be important to have a good grasp of what's going on in the minds of our targets. If anyone has been watching my YouTube videos recently, I have somewhat engaged the flat earth community in a discussion. The reason I've done that is so that we can have some real-time, actual, observable behavior. And you don't need to come here to see that. You come here for the training, and then you can go there and you can observe the commentary. And hopefully the techniques that we are teaching here will become very apparent as to identifying the evidence of those techniques being used elsewhere. The flat earth thing started actually really truly in this country back in the 70s. Probably more so the 60s, but there was a group that began in the 70s, and this is an article from 1994 that delineates that. The Flat Earth Research Society International, allegedly been taking along for 194 years, but this particular group started in 72 out in Stanford in California. And what it has to do with is, after the end of World War II, and we came back and there was this emptiness in society. There was this desire to explore and to become better. And with the advent of ballistic missiles and nuclear weapons, we began to develop technologies that allowed us to look farther and reach out farther and understand our world better. And we started to learn things that were somewhat frightening about how small we were and about the terrors that lived out in the middle of the galaxy. Things like black holes and quasars and pulsars, all this kind of stuff. And it started to have kind of an effect on people, pardon me. They started to have some cognitive dissonance about what they had believed in their religious life, in their spiritual lives, about our importance in the universe. And it was one of those turning point moments that society had to make a decision. And so the first place, believe it or not, that people went when they didn't want to deal with this cognitive dissonant state, was science fiction. And if you look back, the big science fiction movement really started in the 60s and 70s, where they started to create these fantasies about ships and other worlds and exploring. But the dissonant part of it is that space was this giant vacuum. Space had no water, no sunshine, no ecosystems that we rely on every single day. So how are we going to be able to do this and go out in this crazy world and have a command of that world as well without all of these and so they had to invent all of these crazy technologies. It's something that people were using to deal with cognitive dissonance. And it's an amazing thing to see, because, you know, when you have right outside this window an area that is completely antithetical to all life, but inside you got plants growing, you've got couches and, you know, bathrooms and just right gravity, all this kind of stuff. It's cognitive dissonance. This was a way, and that's why you see people that they gravitate, and pardon the term there, but toward the people that are part of the sci-fi community are really, 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 really into it. They get into it in a way that it takes over their lives because of the feeling they get from it. It gives them a feeling of control over things that are uncontrollable. It gives them a feeling of security and the ability to make sense of their world, of being this tiny, itty-bitty little speck of dust in this unimaginable blackness that is all antithetical to our our way of living, our, our beings. You step one, foot outside of our atmosphere, and even in our atmosphere, and you won't live very long. And so this is how they dealt with this. And a natural progression from that was this. Barring the ability to get on a spaceship or a starship and fly around the universe, which we haven't done yet. We've seen lots of movies about it, but nobody's actually pursued it. They had to go to another level. And flat Earth is just another way of dealing with the cognitive dissonant state of living here and perceiving the world one way and realizing that this is not the rule but the exception in the universe. So they create this. And the reason I brought this up is the look on the face of the person they've created here. It's not that flat earthers are stupid. They're just in pain. They have been in such a state where they fear every single day. And in case anybody wants to know what this is, it's a San Diego Reader. It's a site that I pulled up on a search for Flat Earth prior to 2000. It's this old SanDiegoReader.com news, 1994. Flat Earth Society should probably get you there on a Google search prior to 2000. But the look on the face is what I'm going for here. The peace, the calm, the happy. It's the lack of any dissonance. This is what they're going for with the Flat Earth. It's not that they're trying to just be the smartest people. They're trying to be the people that are the most at peace. And they can explain Flat Earth to their kids. They can sit down and they can go to a 5-year-old and they can say, this is the dome and this is where we live and this is why this is, and the sun's just, it looks like it's right up there and it just is right up there, and the same thing with the moon. And it's just a very preschool way of looking at things. But it's, the old ignorance is bliss, the innocence of a child kind of thing. And just to, as an aside, I am a Christian, but I understand the Bible when it says that when I was a child, I thought and spake as a child, but when I became a man, I put away childish things. And this is the hard part of being an adult. And understanding, and I'm not trying to preach, I'm just trying to illuminate the differences in cognition that creates this painful state here in the middle, this cognitive dissonance, that people will do anything to reduce. Anything at all. And like I said, when you look at Star Trek or Star Wars or Stargate or Babylon 5 or Deep Space Nine or any of that stuff, that fantasy outer space stuff, it is just escapism. Because we live in this world, we've gone from 2 billion people to 7 billion people since the 1980s, and so much fear and angst and problems out there that people want a way to command their world in a way that does not cause them mental pain. This is kind of a neat exercise. The first time you do it, it's actually, you start to do it okay, but then you realize you're having to force yourself to say the words. Because you're supposed to say just the color, not the word. So it would be green, yellow, red, black, green, blue. Yeah, and you find yourself, you can do it, but you find yourself forcing yourself to when you wouldn't really think you had to. You practice it a few times, and it becomes very easy, but the initial time, it's very, very hard. There was also a technique we used in the military, and it was just an example where we would ask people, what's the number between 3 and 5? And of course, they would say 4. And then we would ask them, oh, what's that word that you yell out on a golf course before you hit the ball? And they'd say, 4. And say, oh, and what do you eat your cereal with? They would say, a fork. When really you eat your cereal with a spoon. And there's a few others examples like that. So cognitive dissonance is a state where people are in mental anguish. They are in pain. And they cannot deal with the reality that they see before them that contradicts the reality that they've had in their mind about things. We saw it in the last election cycle, and I've covered it ad nauseum. I don't even know if I want to get into this about, how they thought the current president was one thing when really he's something totally different. But no one is immune. Not even the trained are immune. And it's something we always have to be on guard for, and we have to understand that no matter how much training we have or how much experience we have, that we are susceptible to, it makes us human. You just have to be able to know when to use your tools and to always be guarding the gates of your eyes, guarding the gates of your ears, and understanding that the source of the information you're getting is a lot more important than the actual information itself. So, we are going to be going this week deeper into the normality bias and to Maslow's hierarchy, and understanding when people are at a certain state on Maslow's triangle, they are more susceptible to these types of things, to these types of psychological operations that make people create and invent fantasies in their minds to deal with it. So we will leave it there. Thank you so much. As I had alluded to in my YouTube video for today, starting the beginning of July, because of the wonderful response that I've gotten here and on YouTube, we're going to be upgrading to some nicer equipment, and I'm going to try to actually go to school a little bit myself on how to do graphics and how to add music and how to add different things so that I can have it be more than just me talking. I can put better things on the screen than just static pictures. So be looking forward to that coming in July, and if you know anyone that you think might benefit from psychological operations training courses, you know where to find us, right here, Florida Maquis. So anyway, thank you so much, and we will see you next week, probably tomorrow first thing. You can do some reading up on normality, the normality bias, and Maslow's hierarchy. Talk to you then.